Eva Peron, known as Evita, managed to go from the bottom of society to the very top. To this day, her life is surrounded by a lot of legends and speculation, because the proof of many facts have not been able to find. One thing is certain, Evita's biography is an endless series of ups and downs, and what she achieved as a result is the merit of the steely character of this fragile, sweet-looking girl. Eva Maria was born on the 7th of May 1919. She was the fifth child in the family, and her father never recognized her. Nor did he recognize the other four children of his mistress. He had quite a prosperous official family, and Eva's mother never earned a decent status. From childhood, Eva was weak and fragile. One day the girl accidentally doused herself with boiling oil. The doctors assured her that she would always be ugly. However, a month later, her skin was still shining clean and white, with no trace of the burns. Growing up, Eva strived with all her might to get out of her tiny town and into the capital of Argentina. She dreamed of a career as an actress. And one day she simply ran away from home with a visiting actor, believing his promises to help. Then she was barely 15 years old, and contemporaries said that she was not a beauty, not even distinguished by charm, but in it was unbending firmness of character and amazing determination. Apparently, thanks to these qualities, Eva, who later became a celebrity, managed to erase almost all evidence of the path she had to follow in her youth. The first year in Buenos Aires was the hardest for Eva. Afterwards, she confessed that she could have starved to death many times, and her only clothes were a skirt and a blouse. Illegal origins, country reprimand, peasant manners, no patrons. Most likely, patrons had appeared. However, there is no evidence that Eva had to earn money by selling her own body in her youth. She worked as a waitress, then, a mannequin, tried to make a career as a photo model of erotic postcards, but nothing came out of it. Too dull and boring she came out in the pictures. In addition, Eva relentlessly offered herself as an actress, but neither theaters nor radio studios were interested in her. And then there was a wealthy patron with connections, who, as they said, got for Eva a tiny role in the theater, a photo on the cover of a magazine and a job on the radio. Eva quickly realized that if you want to achieve something, you can't do without rich and influential lovers. In 1943, Eva miraculously survived a botched abortion. While she was recovering, all her contracts expired and the specter of poverty loomed again. However, she managed to impress Colonel Francisco Imbert of Anibal, who, following a coup d'état, took over the post office and telegraph office. He made Eva the star of the popular radio play Heroines in History. This was followed by a daily radio program, 5 Minutes for the People, in which Eva spoke passionately about the plight of the poor and the humiliation they endure at the hands of the rich. Millions of ordinary people, listening to Eva's hoarse, heartfelt voice, now and then breaking into sobs, believed her and loved her, a woman as simple as she was, striving to protect the poor. Finding that in a short period of time she had become a national favorite, Eva set herself a higher goal. She wanted to win over the first man in the country, Colonel Perón, who had made his way to the very top of power as a result of the 1930 coup. The 47-year-old widower had a very striking appearance, and most importantly, he had power. In fact, he ruled the country. Approaching Colonel Perón at a charity event, Eva smiled dazzlingly and said in a heartfelt voice, "Thank you for existing, Colonel." That was enough. The indomitable Perón trembled. The same night Eva stayed with him, and from then on they were inseparable. At first, their relationship resembled the standard story of a powerful man and a kept woman. Perón pulled the right levers, and Eva started appearing on the radio more often. Her fees increased considerably. At first she was grateful to the colonel, but then she didn't notice how she fell in love. Perón turned out to be the embodiment of her maiden dreams, a strong, powerful, wise, caring man with whom you want to be close to all your life. In order to please her beloved colonel's entourage, Eva began to work hard on herself. In just 2 months, Eva went from being a peasant upstart to a refined lady, hostess of a salon where she gathered friends and supporters of Colonel Perón. She managed to become an indispensable assistant to Perón, who listened to her advice, which was useful and timely. In her radio appearances, Eva praised Perón in every possible way, and gradually, Under the influence of the radio diva's speeches, more and more people found themselves on his side. And then October 1945 came. There was a coup d'état in the country. Perón was arrested. Eva was fired from the radio station. She was stoned in the street. Students who sided with the new government did not want the former deputy prime minister's girlfriend to remain free. At that moment, when Eva was overcome with terror, she received a letter from prison, from her lover, with ardent confessions and a promise to marry as soon as he was free. Freedom came just a few days later. The military coup was put down. Eva became Perón's wife. He immediately ran for the presidency. The two of them traveled the country together. Perón promised help and support to the poor, and Eva promised love and care. Seeing how high the illegitimate peasant woman had risen, the poor believed Perón's campaign promises and grew to love Eva. For the first time in Latin American history, she was able to become a friend-wife, an equal partner, and Perón's electoral victory was their common victory. When she became First Lady, Evita got to work right away. She was already on her feet at 3 o'clock in the morning. She traveled tirelessly around the country, receiving hundreds and thousands of poor beggars, doing everything she could to make their lives easier. Thanks to Evita, women in Argentina gained the right to vote. In the summer of 1947, Evita traveled to Europe virtually in the rank of statesman, where she met with national leaders and clergy. Although many honored her only as the wife of a head of state, she returned to Argentina as a national leader. In the 20th century, the world knew of no example of a motherless peasant woman with a dubious past achieving such influence. She would pass away at the height of her beauty and youth. In January 1950, Perón's wife fainted during a public appearance. She was taken to a hospital, where a thorough examination was carried out. At first severe anemia was diagnosed and then doctors found the cause of it, cervical cancer. In those years, the viral origin of the disease was not realized. The visiting American doctors promised to do everything possible. A few months later Evita underwent a serious gynecological operation, but time was lost and the disease spread. For as long as they could, they hid her diagnosis and sentence from her. By the end of her life, she weighed less than 36 kilos. She was melting away, but the scales were adjusted to show Evita's normal weight. On the 4th of June 1952, for the last time on the balcony of the Casa Rosada, the doomed Eva, overcome by the most intense pain, said, "Don't cry for me, Argentina. I'm leaving, but I'm leaving you the most precious thing I have, Perón." She was so weak that she could not stand on her own. She had a frame of plaster and wire under her clothes. Her life was cut short in 1952. Eva Peron died at the age of 33. All radio and television stations in the country interrupted their broadcasts on the 26th of July 1952, the day of Evita's death, to give the citizens of the country the sad news. Through tears, the announcer announced, the spiritual leader of the nation, the First Lady of Argentina, Eva Peron, has passed into immortality. 2 days of mourning were declared in Argentina and people gathered around Evita Perón's home to say goodbye to her. There were so many people that on the 27th of July there was an accident. 8 people were trampled in the crowd during the farewell to Evita. However, this did not stop the grieving crowd. People continued to come to the house of the deceased wife of the president for 2 more weeks, leaving flowers. People came from all over the country to say goodbye to her, and those who could not come sent letters to the presidential palace and received a reply with the phrase, "I kiss you from the sky." Her body was embalmed and put on public display in a chapel in Buenos Aires. The inconsolable husband did his best. He invited the best expert in mummification, the Dr. Pedro Ara. To the address of the Vatican flew letters with a request to canonize the favorite of the Argentine people. In total there were more than 40,000 such letters. For 3 years Evita's embalmed body was displayed in a chapel. In 1955, when dictator Perón was overthrown in a coup, the body was attempted to be stolen several times. Fearing that the body would become a holy relic, it was decided to hide it. The body was sent on a transatlantic odyssey for almost 20 years, wreaking havoc wherever it appeared. But in the glass coffin, the 33-year-old woman looked as if she had just left this world. One officer who was guarding the embalmed body accidentally shot his pregnant wife. For unknown reasons he mistook her for a thief. Eva's body was then buried in Milan under the assumed name of Maria Maggi de Magistri. In 1971, her body was exhumed again and transported to Madrid, where it was welcomed by Juan Perón and his new wife Isabel, who had fled to Spain after the putsch. In 1974, Juan Perón died, and Evita's body was again transported to Argentina. But this time, too, not everything went smoothly. On the way to Madrid airport, the guards had an altercation and a shootout, and the car crashed into a wall, but somehow the coffin itself was not damaged at all. The new government decided to bury Evita's body in the Duarte family vault in the Recoleta cemetery. On the way to the cemetery, the lorry carrying the body had an accident. The driver had a heart attack. She was finally buried next to her father, who never recognized his child when he was alive. Evita now lies 5 meters underground, her grave fortified under 2 massive lead slabs, with the words "I will return and become millions" written on the wall behind the crypt grate. The wife of a dictator who became more popular than he was, a failed actress about whom musicals were written and films were made, a spiritual leader of Argentina who even after his death has a huge political influence, a provincial with a dubious reputation, ready to go to the head for the sake of her goal. This is all about her, about Evita. Eva Peron lived only 33 years, of which she was the First Lady of Argentina for 6 of those years. In interviews, Eva called the day she and Juan met a miracle.